Hello everybody, I'm Pierce, I'm from Tales from the Road, and this is the visa guide for Americans traveling to Southeast Asia. For many Americans, we don't necessarily need to think about visas, especially when traveling to Europe. Visas are essentially an agreement between countries which allow citizens from one country legally into another country for a certain allotted amount of time. When traveling to Southeast Asia, it's important to know the visa rules because many countries have their own visa regulations specifically for Americans and require you to get an entry visa, meaning a visa on arrival, an e-visa which you get online, or a visa which you can obtain at an embassy. In this video, I will go country by country through the ASEAN nations, the Association of Southeastern Asian Nations, focusing on the visa rules for each country based on the American perspective. If you don't want to watch the whole video, I will link the exact time that we're talking about each country that you're interested in. So if you're interested in Thailand, look in the description below and you'll be able to find the section regarding Thailand. So let's get started, guys. Brunei. Visa-free, 90 days. The first country on our list is Brunei. Brunei is a small Southeast Asian nation on the island of Borneo, bordering Malaysia. Brunei does not have a visa regulation for Americans, which is good. Theoretically, you can stay up to 90 days on a single entry into the country if you can just prove that you have an outbound ticket at any point. The biggest port of entry into Brunei is the airport in Bandar Seri Begawan. I love saying that one. And you can get there from many regional flights from Southeast Asia itself. Cambodia, visa on arrival, you get 30 days. Next, we move on to Cambodia. Cambodia is a little bit of a confusing story. If you're interested in going to Cambodia and trying to get a visa in the United States, you can do two things. You can apply for an e-visa online. You fill out a form, you send in some passport photos, and they'll give you a printout which you can redeem at the border when you fly into Phnom Penh, or you can get a visa on arrival when you fly into Phnom Penh without doing an e-visa or from any land border. The visa on arrival costs $35, and I've done this a few times by bus coming from both Thailand and from Vietnam. By bus, you'll just take the bus into Cambodia, get to the border, they'll take your passport, you'll hand them $35, and then miraculously, boom, you'll have a visa ready to go in your passport, handwritten, which I think is kind of hilarious, which allows you into Cambodia. The typical stay in Cambodia, or the visa that you can get for $35, lasts 30 days. The most common ports of entry in Cambodia are flying into the capital city, Phnom Penh, or of course by the land borders, Moc Bai in Vietnam, and I think Suvarnabhumi, I'm not exactly sure, on the border of Thailand. The Cambodia visa process is really simple. Just make sure you have US dollars to pay the visa fee. It makes it a lot easier for you in the long run. East Timor, not visa free, but you get 30 days. The next country on our list is East Timor, the only country in Southeast Asia which is not a part of the ASEAN network. East Timor is a small island nation that borders Indonesia on the island of Timor. It's recently independent, and apparently for Americans you do need a visa. The two options you have is you can get a visa in the US, which you can use to cross either the land border or when you arrive in Dili, the capital city, or you can get a visa on arrival, which is only valid if you fly in the country. It does not work if you cross the land border from Indonesia. For the visa on arrival, all you need to do is fill out the visa on arrival document. You bring 30 US dollars, 2 passport photos, proof of where you're staying, as well as what they're calling an introduction letter, which I assume is some sort of letter or invitation letter. If you need more information specifically, I have a link below, which is the State Department's recommendation for traveling to East Timor. Indonesia. Oh, it's visa-free. 30 days. The next country on our list is Indonesia. Many Americans travel to Indonesia, whether it's going to Bali, going to the capital city of Jakarta, or to the island of Java. And the good news for Americans is Indonesia is completely visa-free. Arrive at any port of entrance and you get 30 days to stay in the country. Typically, you don't need to prove anything. When I did it, you just crossed the border and that was that. It may be good always to have a return ticket to prove to the authorities that you will leave, but that's not always necessary. Laos. The Laotians give 30 days. Visa on arrival. The next country on our list is Laos, the socialist country that borders Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, and China. Americans definitely need a visa to Laos along with all of the other communist/socialist countries in the region. To get into Laos, it's pretty easy. You can do a visa on arrival when you fly in from the various ports of entry, whether it's in Pak Se, in Vientiane, or north in Luang Prabang. To do the visa on arrival, just make sure you have 2 passport photos, you have your proof of where you're staying, you have a valid passport with 6 months left and a place for them to put the visa, as well as $35 US. When I flew into Luang Prabang, there was absolutely nobody except my plane that had arrived, and there was about 5 people doing the visa on arrival, so getting into Laos is actually incredibly simple. The visa process took more or less 20 minutes. Malaysia, visa-free, 90 days. The next country on our list is Malaysia, another amazing place for expats to fly into because it's so easy. From any port of entry you arrive into Malaysia, you get 90 days visa-free, and I've never been questioned or asked for any sort of documentation, specifically in Malaysia. It's always good, just in case, to have maybe a place where you're staying, or a little bit of information about your trip, or a return ticket, but for Malaysia specifically, it's probably not necessary. Malaysia is an awesome hub, also if you're an American in the region and you're working, to fly into in case you need to make a visa run. The embassies in Kuala Lumpur are super simple to use. I've even made a visa run there in the past, and they're typically not very crowded because Kuala Lumpur only has 1 million people. The Philippines, definitely visa-free, 30 days. Another super simple country to enter and to stay in is the Philippines. You can arrive in the Philippines at any port of entry, whether it's Manila or Davao in the south, and you get an immediate 30-day visa-free guarantee to be able to stay in the country. I haven't gone to Manila myself, but I've heard from many other people that the country is really easy to navigate, and if you're interested in extending your visa, it's not too complicated a process. Singapore, visa-free, 90 days. Along with Malaysia, we have our next country, Singapore, another incredibly easy place for Americans to go into. When I went to Singapore, they only stamped my passport in. They didn't even stamp me out. They barely looked at my passport in general. They didn't ask me any information about my trip, and I got a full 90 days to stay in Singapore to do as I wish. Singapore is a big economic and trading area for many Americans, whether they're doing business or whether they're just traveling and doing tourism. So it's an incredibly easy place to hub a trip, and if you're doing Southeast Asia, where you can enter freely to make sure that your trip is as simple and easy as possible. If you're doing visa runs, Singapore is also another easy place to do a visa run, although it's a little bit more complicated because the embassies are much smaller. The Thailand, it's visa-free. You get 30 days. The next country on our list is Thailand. I would argue probably the most popular among American tourists. Thailand is super simple, whether you're arriving from Chiang Mai in the north, Bangkok in the central region, or Krabi in the south if you're planning on going to the islands. Americans get 30 days visa-free, so that means arrive at the border, have your passport and maybe a little bit of information about your trip, get the stamp, and don't overstay your visa because the Thais are quite serious about people who overstay and often impose quite high fines. It's quite easy to also extend your visa in Thailand. You can simply go to an embassy, or you can go to a place that literally you give them your visa, you give them some cash, and then they'll come back with an extended Thai visa. Myanmar. You need an e-visa. You get 28 days. The next country on our list is Myanmar. Myanmar just opened itself up to Americans just about five or 6 years ago. And I thought the process to get into Myanmar would be a lot more complicated than it was. What you do is you go to the government website and you apply for an e-visa. The e-visa just asks you to send a picture of yourself, a visa photo, as well as the full visa form, as well as $50 if you want the normal processing time, and $56 if you want it in 3 business days. Once the e-visa is approved by the Myanmar government authorities, they'll send you a receipt. What you do then is you bring the receipt with you to the port of entry along with 2 passport photos and information about your stay, where you're staying, how long you're staying, where else you'll be traveling to. Pretty quickly, like let's say in 2 minutes, they'll give you a stamp in, they'll verify your documentation, and you can stay in Myanmar for up to 28 days. It's important to remember that once you get the e-visa approval letter, you only have 90 days to redeem it. So make sure that you plan getting the visa that coincides with your trip to Myanmar. The ports of entry typically that we can enter are by land from Thailand, and also by air in the capital city of Yangon, or in the north in the northern city of Mandalay. Vietnam, e-visa or visa on arrival, you can get 30 days, you can get 90 days, and if you're a big baller, you can get 1 full year, like this guy. The last country on our list is Vietnam, the country that I'm sitting in that is so amazing to visit. For going to Vietnam, essentially you have 2 options. If you live next to a consulate or next to an embassy in the US, you can go into the embassy, you give them your documents, you give them your passport photo and your passport, you give them $25 for a 30-day entrance. Once that's ready to go, you go pick it up, and then when you fly to Vietnam, you have a visa ready to go, you get directly into the country. If you don't live next to a consulate or embassy like I do, because I'm from New Mexico, what you can do is you can get a visa on arrival or an e-visa in which you can use a company. You submit all your paperwork and you'll get a visa on arrival letter. What you'll do is you'll get this official letter in the mail, or it will be waiting for you at your port of entrance when you fly into Vietnam. You cannot do this option if you arrive by the land border. You'll take your visa letter to the visa on arrival center. You'll have it processed along by providing them 2 passport photos and the money in which it costs, $25 for the 30-day, around $70 for the 90-day. And Americans have an amazing option where you can actually get a 1-year tourist visa for Vietnam. I paid a service and I paid $180. All you have to do is leave Vietnam every 90 days, step out, and then you can come back in, and it's valid for an entire year. The Vietnam visa process and border is pretty simple. I've done it many times, and as long as you have the right documentation, as long as you can prove that you have a departure ticket, and as long as you have a place to stay that you can put on your visa information, you should be good to go. On a final note, Southeast Asia is an amazing region. Each country has so much unique and interesting things to do, and regarding the border process and being American in Southeast Asia, it's really the easiest place you can travel. I've never had any trouble on the border. No one's even batted an eye at my American passport. They generally just look to see where I've been, they put the stamp in, they hand me my passport back, and I arrive in the country safely. In many countries in Southeast Asia, you can process new visas for new countries you'll be going to in the country. So if you're in Thailand and you're planning on going to Vietnam later in your trip, what you can do is you can find a visa agent. These are people who work full-time handling and processing visas. You give them your passport, you wait typically 3 days, and after you pay the fee, you'll get the visa in your passport. It's a really smart way to travel in Asia because doing it on the border is sometimes confusing, complicated. If you don't speak the language, it can be a little bit intimidating, and you can save yourself the hassle by using an accredited visa agent. I'll also link below some accredited good visa agents that I've used in the past, or solutions or other information that I can give you which will illustrate clearly the process of getting a visa while you're already in the country. If you found this video interesting or helpful, make sure to, of course, like and subscribe to the channel. Typically, we do travel and food videos here, but we will also be doing how-tos, instructional videos for traveling, for backpacking, and for exploring our planet. Thank you guys for watching. Cheers.